All right. Hello and welcome back. Brett here with clickmill.co. So in this section, we're going to be talking about starting to measure. So instead of having this big confusing mess of responsibilities, we firstly don't even have enough resources to pay for the cost of these responsibilities, and we're not even sure who's responsible for which part. So we have a lot of enmeshment going on between job roles. Oh, you're supposed to pastor this ministry over here, but really we need you over here for 5 months out of the year. And then we're confused as to why your church is shrinking. There's enmeshment between the performance goals and the job descriptions and who's responsible for what. And if these are even realistic, we don't know. It's just a lot of confusion. We just got a bunch of scribble scrabble going on up here, and it's just a lot of craziness. Okay. In this video, we need to talk about starting to break this down. And this is what we might call distinguishing the message from the noise. And this is where we need to start looking at, firstly, what do we even need to be doing? If again, we're just using the financial analogy. If the bill is $5,000 a month and you only have 3,000, it's delusional to think that you can just do it magically. So we have to figure out how to lose 2,000. And firstly, that's very painful because, but it's for the Lord, it's for the kingdom. That's going backwards. No, it's not going backwards. You've taken out debt that you cannot afford, and you shouldn't have had that to begin with. So now it is time to cut what should have been cut already, but it is now negatively affecting the functioning of whatever it is God's called you to do. So we need to distinguish the parts that need to be cut from the parts that don't. Okay, so if we put this maybe in a more like biblically farming example, and I've maybe mentioned this in some other courses. When I am working in my garden, you get this stuff called white, so little spider mites, little tiny little fuzzy white things, and they get on your sweet potatoes, they get on stuff, and they hide up under the leaves. You don't even notice them, and then all of a sudden it's like, what is killing my leaf? What is going on here? And you start looking around, you see this fuzzy white stuff, and they're little tiny bugs that are eating the life out of your leaves. And when you find it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. Okay, what do? You can try to treat it. You go in, hopefully with some organic stuff, and you go in with and you spray them and you try to get rid of them. They don't like certain things, and maybe you can save it. That's fine. If you can't, that's great. When you can't, and that's what we're talking about, when you can't treat the illness, you have to figure out what to do to stop it from spreading. Okay. Now we're contingency planning. Well, this is going to continue to spread. These bugs are not going to stop eating this giant part of my plant. What do I do? You have to cut it off. And so the question is, how do you assess the illness, know where it is, and know what to cut? Because you don't want to cut more than you have to, but you want to cut exactly as much as you need, because if you miss some of the illness, it's still going to spread. And that's what we're talking about. So we have to distinguish the noise from the message. What is the meaningful stuff that needs to stay? And what is the noise, the static on the TV that shouldn't be there? And in order to do that, you need to know what the fruit is. When I was talking with this farmer that was the engineer, solid Christian guy, such an interesting conversation, I said, how do you produce fruit? If you're talking to ministry leaders, how would you tell them to produce more fruit? He goes, he looked at me confused. He's like, everybody knows that. And I was like, it's like, no, everybody doesn't know that. He's confused. He's like, just look in your field at what's already producing fruit and then do that again. Like, this is obvious. No, this isn't obvious. This is not easy to do with people. It seems fairly obvious, at least from your perspective in ministry and farming. But even him, he later told me, yeah, it took me 6 years to figure it out. I just kept having failed crops after failed crops, and he finally figured it out. So it was obvious to him after a lot of failure, which is great. Good job, you learned it. Okay, so when we distinguish the noise from the message, what's the message? The message is the stuff that is producing fruit in your ministry. That's the stuff that works. That's the stuff that God is blessing. That is going to tell you the needs of your audience, the things they show up for, the things that produce action. Those are the things they care about. Everything else is noise. Everything else doesn't matter. And the thing that happens oftentimes when we distinguish the noise from the message is it's actually a really painful process, because the things that matter most to you are the things you want to be the message. And so we have this sort of implicit bias in us. Well, no, surely that's not that ministry is my baby. That product line is my baby. Even here at ClickMill, you know, I don't know if this course platform, this is a startup test. We're testing the market to see if this is even any good. I don't know if this platform is going to be any good. And it's my baby. I really hope it works. And if nobody wants it ever and nobody takes it, I'm gonna have to cut it. We'll scratch it and we'll move on. Boy, would that hurt. But if it's noise, it's noise. There's nothing I can do about that. So the first part of getting rid of the root cause of burnout is cutting back the vine. And we see this in scripture. I am the vine and you are the branches. Whoever does not bear fruit, I will cut off and throw into the fire. That's a synopsis. I know there's a little more to that. But we're assessing what is not fruitful, maybe even what is diseased. We're figuring out how far that disease has spread, and then we are unashamedly and unabashedly cutting everything that needs to be cut. Okay. And good ministries, good businesses prune before they have to. It's much easier to get out your hedge trimmers and trim the hedge so it's nice and square and beautiful. Isn't that nice? If you don't do that and something gets sick and something gets out of touch, you got to just dig it up by the roots and throw it out and get a new one. That's way more work than just trimming and pruning as it's needed. So we're distinguishing the noise from the message. The noise is everything that's not producing fruit, and the message is the things that people are responding to positively, that are bringing growth and vitality and flourishing into your ministry, your business, your family, whatever it is. So as we continue, we're going to talk about separating those out and kind of seeing more practically how to do that. God bless.